Alrighty then, it's time to get started with assignment 1-2. I'm Corey Bungie Bauer, and I will be your guide through this wonderful, fantastically interesting, and exciting experience. So, I will give you a warning right off the bat. If you did not go through the tutorial in Chapter 1, I would do that before doing this exercise. If you don't have the patience or the time for that, if your assignment's due in a few hours, at the very least, skim through it. Read a few of the boxes. Read the captions under the pictures. Otherwise, this is me kind of confusing. All right, you ready? Let's go. So, assignment 1-2 asks us to facilitate the Erin Street Crime Watch. So the first step we're going to take is we're going to add data using our favorite button, the Add Data button. So the instructions say, look in the Esri Press folder, GIST1 /data /Pittsburgh /midhill.gdb /streets. It's a whole lot of backslashes. So you'll probably start GIST1 data. Pittsburgh, the city of bridges. Do you know that Pittsburgh has more bridges than any city in the world? And yes, that includes Venice. So, stay tuned for more fun facts about Pittsburgh, folks. Mid-Hill and streets. Now, these are the streets from what's known as the Hill District in Pittsburgh. For those of you interested in urban development, this is a interesting or a tragic case study in urban redevelopment gone wrong. The Hill District was, back in the 60s, a bustling middle-class African-American neighborhood, and then they built the Civic Arena at the bottom of the hill, which cut off the Hill District from downtown Pittsburgh, and it became a downtrodden, impoverished neighborhood for the next 30, 40 years, and now some redevelopment efforts are underway to try and do it right this time. Anyway, back to the assignment. Let's see here. So, we added the streets, so it also says to add a whole bunch of more stuff. So, we got buildings, curbs, and CAD calls. Not cat calls, CAD calls. So if you hit the control button and select all three, buildings, curbs, and CAD calls, and hit add, it'll add all of them all at once. Alright, the next step we want to take is we gotta zoom in on Erin Street. And not just any part of Erin Street. We want to zoom in on the part of Erin Street that's the 100 block, which means if you look at the first hint, the hints are actually very helpful in this book. If you look at the first hint, it says addresses range from 100 to 199 and is perpendicular to Webster and Wiley Streets. How would we zoom in on Erin Street? If you read the tutorial, there are all sorts of ways of zooming in. We could zoom in this way. We could zoom out this way. We could take this button. We could zoom in like this. But we don't know where Erin Street is, so that's not going to help. The easiest way to do this is to look in the attribute table for Erin Street. So if you go to Streets and you go to the Open Attribute table, look at all these street names here. A zillion of them. So you could do a search, but it's probably easier to just pick, this is the variable for the street name here. Just double click it, now they're in alphabetical order. And here, Erin Street. Now you notice left address and right address, so this is the range of addresses here. So not only do we have Erin Street, but we have Erin Street between 100 and 199 here. So if we select that record, and view just that record if we want, that's Erin Street 100 to 199. And we can close this, and there it is right there. That's the part of Erin Street we want to zoom in on. So there are a few different ways to zoom, like I said. The other way that you might want to zoom is if you go into here, you can do zoom to selected features, and that should zoom in on Erin Street right there. And then you can deselect Erin Street here. Okay, so now we want to create a bookmark of this zoomed in part here. You might want to adjust it a little bit, zoom in, zoom out a little bit. I'm just going to do it like this for demonstration purposes. So bookmark, create, and name it Erin Street, and hit OK. Alright, so now if we go back to the full extent here, you can always go to bookmark, and there it is right there, Erin Street. And we zoom in right where we were before. The next thing that we have to do is we have to change the color of the curbs and the buildings and the streets. So it says in the directions to make all of those a light gray. So if we click here on the color palette here, we make it light gray. So how about 30%? That seems pretty light, I guess. Okay, and then streets, same thing, gray 30%, and buildings, gray 30%, and I'll leave the outline of the building that darker shade of gray. And now we have all of these, or gray, so everything except for the CAD calls. Now, the CAD calls you might want to make stand out even more. One of the exercises that it went through in the tutorial was how to change this. So let's make these a little bit bigger. How about a brighter color? Let's stick with the red. Makes it a little bit bigger dot. All right, there we go. Look at that. Now these are easy to see. You'll also need to, it says in instructions, make sure CAD calls the top layer. So right now it is the top layer, so we don't need to change anything. But if you added them in a different order, so if CAD calls is the bottom layer, you can see buildings is now above CAD calls, and all the CAD calls that are beneath buildings you can no longer see. So if you move CAD calls back up to the top layer, now you see this one over here that reappears. So we want to be able to see all the CAD calls. Okay, so that's the top layer. And then the last thing that we need to do for the map is we need to label the streets. So how many people remember how to label? Double click on streets, go to labels, label features. So I think F name is the name of the street. Let's hit apply and make sure. Yep, it is. Okay, and that seems a reasonable size. We can read that, so let's just hit OK. So there's Erin Street, and so now we can check our work. Erin Street, and it's between Webster Street and Wiley Street. So this is definitely the correct block. Everything's in light gray. CAD calls are on top of everything else. We can see them. And we're zoomed in. So now all we need to do is export this map and paste it into our document. Except that I forgot the most important thing, which is to save our map. So we want to save it. So now we want to export it, export map, and you want to export it as a JPEG, and chapter 1, we can call it that, that's fine, and then go back to our document here. Alright, so for my students, a couple of things I didn't tell you to do in this document the first time. First thing is to, at the top, label each assignment. So this is assignment 1-1. I don't need that many spaces. And then let's put a header on here with your name, so I know whose it is when I'm grading it. Okay. Now, we want to go down to a new page and put the next things in. You'll notice there's nothing below this map, and this is why Word is kind of a pain in the butt with inserting pictures and tables. So it seems like, how do I get the cursor below there? Well, if you hit the down arrow or the right arrow, you'll see a blinking cursor down here. You can hit enter a couple times, get a couple spaces so that now you can hit backspace or something on accident and you won't delete the map. Now, if you hold down Control and hit enter, it'll go down to a whole new page. You can do assignment 1-2. And now we can put our map here. So we want to go to Insert, Picture. Here's our map. There we go. And let's make sure we save this before it gets too late in the game. So I want you to save this as just what this one says right here. Your last name first, so that it gets sorted by that in my folder. Chapters 1 through 2. I'll just stick another word on there so I have another assignment. Okay, and then it's always a good idea to put the cursor at the very bottom, hit enter a couple of times so that you have a little bit of wiggle room. So that does it for this map. You'll have to tune in the next time to figure out how to put the table into this assignment. I will see you then.